Hey guys, Blake Hall here. I'm here to talk about one of my all-time favorite films, David Lynch's Blue Velvet. One of my all-time favorites. My admiration for this film goes back quite some time. However, I have to say, in recent times, as I've revisited this film, I just find it has more of a power, resonance, and impact than ever before. It's just like that resonance just kind of grows more and more with time. What instantly grabs me about the film is it kind of has two flip sides of a coin. You have an innocent nature, and you have the dark seediness of the world. We see all this from the lens of Jeffrey Beaumont, played by Kyle MacLachlan. He's back in his hometown after his dad's in the hospital, and he stumbles upon a human ear in the ground. So he takes it to the detective, and this mystery just instantly captivates him. What I really love is right off the bat, you can tell this is kind of a boring town, and Jeffrey's just in general kind of a bored guy. He's the kind of guy that's, always probably looking for something to sort of stimulate this itch, this curiosity that lies within him. And yeah, he'll take anything that hits him that would be interesting rather than boring. He's been bored through everything he knows and sees. It's kind of has a very innocent lifestyle, and that's kind of boring to him at some point. So one night, Jeffrey's walking around, stumbling around this suburban neighborhood, and he runs into Sandy Williams. This is the daughter of the detective he turned the ear to. She has some information about, the roots, the confidential information about the roots of where this ear came from. So, she spills the beans to Jeffrey. And Jeffrey starts to get this twisted little idea in his crazy little head to sneak into the apartment and take matters into his own hands. Not really matters, but rather just to know where this came from. What's the root of this ear? So he poses as a bug spray, actually sneaks into the apartment. And then living there is a Dorothy Valens. She is a club singer. So he ends up going in there posing as that. That night, Jeffrey and Sandy go to watch her perform. And then right after that, Jeffrey goes back and sneaks into the apartment again, just trying to pick up more clues. Him and Sandy kind of have this plan. The plan backfires. So Dorothy comes home while Jeffrey's still up there. Dorothy goes into the room. Jeffrey hides out in the closet. Starts being this peeping Tom. Watches Dorothy undress, just watches her do all these things. And then Dorothy opens up the closet door and catches Jeffrey. So this is just kind of a crazy scene. And then eventually she starts kind of creating some sexual favors, from Jeffrey. Jeffrey's just overwhelmed, but he's also just endlessly fascinated by, what's going on here. Of course, this is satisfying that itch in a twisted way, so he's going to go with it. He put himself into it. So he goes along with this until a man named Frank Booth comes into the picture. He's played by Dennis Hopper. He's one of the most evil, unfathomably terrifying men you could possibly imagine. Comes into the room and does some unspeakably violently horrific things to Dorothy. So Jeffrey's back in the closet, meanwhile, just watching all this, just scarring his fragile mind. Scarring his innocent nature big time just by watching all this. After Frank leaves the picture, Jeffrey comes out of the closet, and him and Dorothy continue this sort of sexual thing that they had brewing. The sexual tension kind of goes somewhere. You can tell Dorothy's just coming from an overwhelmingly dark, twisted place, while Jeffrey is sort of having something of a sexual awakening through all of this. Dorothy's just been, you can tell it's unspeakably horrible what she's being put through here. She's in a really bad place, and she's kind of almost turning a sexual release from Jeffrey just because it's like she just this innocent kind of kid in general is there. So she's kind of like, she's in a really scarred place. So, the next day, this completely messes with Jeffrey's head and everything that he witnessed, everything he saw. He can't stop thinking about it. It's like it traumatized him, but the mystery of it, he's making him obsessive also. Like he's dying to know more. He's gotten himself this far. He's just going to keep going at this point. So he goes back to the apartment again. Well, I should say before all that happens, there's a really great monologue with him and Sandy. He's telling Sandy some of what happened, and then Sandy kind of has this monologue about robins and how robins represent love and the good innocence of the world. And I love this scene because, Jeffrey likes this, but then when he walks out, it's like, that's just kind of, the innocent love kind of talk. And you can tell Jeffrey is almost a little bored of that also. Like, you can tell he's essentially more interested in just, the seediness. He wants to get back to the mystery, the mysteries of the world. That's way more interesting for him at this point. So he goes back up to Dorothy's place. They end up continuing this sort of sexual thing that's going on. And then Frank comes back into the picture. Frank comes back, and this is my favorite segment of the entire film. Frank decides to take Jeffrey and Dorothy with the goon squad to a little night out in town, a joyride as he calls it. So they go out for this joyride, and they just really put a lot of fear and intimidation in Jeffrey's head. It's like, and the way they do this is they're just yelling. There's just all this kind of just going on about all this nonsense, but there's just a lot of adrenaline. There's a lot of very intense energy. That's the thing about Frank that's so scary. His energy is so dominating. It's overwhelmingly dominating. Where it's like that you can feel it that he's capable of just unspeakably horrific things, which he actually is, as we see there a little earlier. So poor Jeffrey's just terrified out of his mind. Like he's. Frank's the kind of man where it's like no matter how much you hate him, no matter what it is, you're gonna have to go with what he says. He will, otherwise he will bring out that beast, that unspeakable beast. So they go to a little bar, and in this bar is Ben, played by Dean Stockwell. So Ben, greets them and everything, and then the vibes of this place are just really bizarre. Like something feels really off about this whole place. And again, I kind of like to think that everyone sort of hates Frank, but they're going with it because he's acquainted with them. He's in the circle, so it's like something about the air just feels like passive to the point of no return. Like they're just kind of stuck with this, stuck with this maniac of a guy. But they're gonna have to go with it. Just what are they gonna do? He'll probably kill him if they make him feel like slightly like if they go against him in any slight way. Anyways, after all this, Frank, Ben starts to sing Roy Orbison's "In Dreams," and Frank has a bit of an emotional moment with the song. You can tell it really hits him. It speaks to something in him. So, and he looks at Jeffrey too. I mean, he wants to beat him up. It's like you can tell he just really despises something about Jeffrey. And I think what it is that Jeffrey is an innocent kid. He's like a good-natured kid. Frank just hates that in a person. He's just he's just angry that a person has it that good, basically. So now he takes everyone out, the Gruden squad out into the middle of nowhere, and he decides he's going to psychologically torture Jeffrey in this part. Takes Jeffrey out of the car, but messing around, kind of just being vulgar with Dorothy here, just kind of, and then he starts to mess with Jeffrey. He starts to go to him, make out with him, and he starts, saying you're just like me. I think what Frank is seeing is just hey, you're capable of being this much of a beast too. You know that, right, kid? He's just making him see that. It's like, well, you're just as bad. You could be just as bad as me. Look at you. You're out for this mystery. You're curious. And it's like, look, kid, so was I when I was at one age. I like to think that, at least. It's very ambiguous what his background is like, because he's such an unfathomable force of evil. It's hard to even, imagine what a person like that would have been like growing up. But I like to have a theory that he was once something, maybe he had something of an innocent nature to him, with he got completely corrupted, and he just became completely evil past the point of return. So... Jeffrey, meanwhile, is just kind of waking up to this. I like to, it's a little ambiguous what's going through Jeffrey's head, but I like to imagine he's being extremely challenged by all of this. He's starting to realize, wow, maybe I am, he's not exactly wrong almost. It's like this terrifying realization. It's like he does have this overwhelming, mysterious bone into him. He wants to unsolve all these mysteries, but, it's like, wow, if that got corrupted, that could take it to unfathomably dark, bad places. So the next day, Jeffrey's just lying out there. He's completely scarred by all this. He's all bruised up, beat up. And then after all this, him and Sandy go out for a dance. And it's so great because all these scenes are very innocent. But you can kind of tell that Jeffrey's gained a newfound confidence having gone through all this. It's almost like it's hard. You don't want to label this as good, bad necessarily. But, the fact that Jeffrey put himself through all of this. But, in a twisted way, this does have a benefit on him in the way that he's got this newfound understanding and an awareness, and it's almost like the things that used to seem like such a big deal just suddenly are not a big deal, going out for a dance. There's a part where Sandy's boyfriend, Mike, comes out, starts chasing Jeffrey and Sandy down, and he starts to interrogate Jeffrey. Well, it's just, it probably would have been a big deal to Jeffrey had he been a little younger. But now he's seen some stuff this unfathomably dark and evil. It's like, this is nothing, man. It's just some high school punk messing with me. But then he also sees Dorothy coming out. She's naked, scarred, and just psychologically tortured. She's completely messed up. So, Jeffrey's going to instantly cater towards her. And I like how even Mike's like, hey, man, he watches all this happen. He's like, look, I'm sorry I messed with you, man. It's almost like, whoa, Mike had no clue. This is like, oh, that's just a bunch of nonsense next to all this. And then poor Sandy's watching all this unfold. Her innocent world is being scarred just watching all this happen. She's like, this man that she loves is just catering with this naked girl. There's no explanation. It's just like, what is going on here? And one of my favorite hilariously awkward scenes is whenever Jeffrey goes into the Detective Williams' house with Dorothy naked Dorothy right on the side, just saying all these bizarre sexual things to him. And it's scarring them, completely scarring them. I love Sandy's just sitting here like, terrified. Mrs. Williams is there too. It's just like, whoa, this is just. I like Jeffrey's head. This is on he's on such a wild ride at this point, and I imagine the adrenaline's so insane that nothing's gonna phase this guy anymore, man. It's just like he's been through quite a journey here at this point. And of course, Sandy's in love with Jeffrey at this point, so this doesn't permanently kill anything. Although it's as much as it challenged her, like Sandy's just like, I love him. And Jeffrey's of course just like, in this weird way, this mystery just got to the best of him. It's like, but he's still trying to portray like, I really love you though. This just went to a really far, bizarre place. So, in the end, Jeffrey goes back to the apartment one last time. Frank ends up finding him up there, and they have a final showdown. And then Jeffrey ends up gunning him down, killing him, and then that's the end. We get actually a very happy ending for this movie. I believe that what's so incredible about it is Jeffrey's able to go back to, an innocent nature, as he knew it right just before. But now he has a newfound understanding. All these mysteries, all this exploring, all the deep-seatedness has, brought him to an awareness that, hey, this world's kind of a messed up place too. So, and now that he's always got that in the back of his head, he's kind of at a newfound confidence and a newfound sense of self-growth and whatnot. He gets the girl. He's got Sandy as his girlfriend now. He's back at home. Dorothy's even reunited with her son again. It's actually very happy of an ending for that. It's just such an incredible film. It's one of the all-time best. What I really love about that ending is just it does communicate that where, it's like a person can, be fully aware of the dark seediness. You can be, but you don't have to let it corrupt you and get to the best of you. I think the film is trying to show you that you can still retain an innocent nature. You can still be that, you can still be that person that you were before you knew of all these unfathomable evils. But you also don't want to but as you grow older, you don't want to lose awareness of that necessarily either. You don't want to be in a bubble and delude yourself by telling yourself this evil doesn't exist, because it really does. So I just think it's incredible how Jeffrey kind of just has this new understanding of growth. It's a really personal kind of story for Jeffrey to go through. I love that. I think that's just so incredible. You can still be the person you always were. Just know that the world's cruel and harsh also. That's Blue Velvet. It's a very personal favorite of mine for a lot of those reasons. I can really identify with a lot of Jeffrey's personality and just the way he is. Kind of just like a good-natured person. You can be kind of naive in a lot of situations, but you're almost in a way you're looking deep down. You're always looking to kind of satisfy an itch of curiosity. I like how the film kind of takes you through that kind of voyeuristic adventure that a person like me is always tempted to, but the movie kind of does it for me in a lot of ways. So it's incredibly profound. I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it. Even if you have seen it, I highly recommend watching it again, because it has a power that can only it only heightens on rewatches. Amongst David Lynch films, this is actually one of the most linear films he made. But yet it's also one of the most unique films in his catalog too, because it's not as surreal, but it does kind of have that unique balance of innocent nature and evil and terrifying sequences. A lot of his films kind of venture more into just exploring the dark side of things. I like how this film has that kind of mix right in between. Makes it one of the most special and powerful films he's made. So that's Blue Velvet. Highly recommend checking it out. Next, I'm going to be taking on the Coen Brothers' No Country for Old Men. So stay tuned for that. Appreciate you watching, and have a good one.